Colorado is a blue island. The red wave that swept America last night, Donald Trump's resounding victory that moved margins his way, even in places he didn't win, it just didn't really materialize in Colorado. In fact, about half of this state's counties moved against the national shift toward Trump and slid to the left. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger set out to discover why.
There is a shifting of the political winds. These red arrows on this map created by the New York Times show counties that shifted more in favor of President-elect Trump this year than 4 years ago. If you're looking for blue, we need to zoom into Colorado. These colors do not indicate which candidate won that county. They show which candidate did better compared to 4 years ago. Take Mesa County, for example. Harris is losing by 22 points, but Biden lost by 28.
There's been a shift in population there. There's been a shift in demographics there.
Courtney Sievers is director of survey research for the right-leaning polling firm Magellan Strategies. She's also from Mesa County, which has seen a shift to the left.
You've seen stuff for the school district pass there that are tax increases. You've seen Democrats land on the city council there in Grand Junction. So there has been a shift of demographics as a whole since 2020.
Back to this political weather map. There is a lot of red in the swing states that helped decide this election, like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
And I think the things that make Colorado stand out from those three states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, is just generally two things. It's college education and just generally higher income voters on average.
Ryan Winger is the data analyst for Magellan, who points to the makeup of Colorado's voter that has created a blue island.
The statewide trend is just you do have more of these college educated voters that are maybe voting on things other than their own economic well-being because they have the luxury of doing so.
Magellan's CEO David Flaherty also suggests Colorado voters just want candidates with less baggage.
The drama from the Republican Party at the state level, as well as Lauren Boebert and Donald Trump, that continues to have unaffiliated voters to have pause in being, I don't know if I want to vote for this Republican because I may not be sure what I'm going to get.
I want to look at this map a little closer because I know it wasn't up long enough in that story. Again, this isn't where a candidate won. It's how they performed compared to 4 years ago. The darker the blue, it means that Harris did at least 3 points better than Biden from 4 years ago. The dark red means Trump did at least 3 points better than he did 4 years ago. And then the lighter colors are 0 to 3% in between. But this is as of the results of 5 p.m. Pueblo really going for Trump this time around. I know Mesa, it just looks weird that Mesa is blue, Kyle. But again, it just means that she did much better in Mesa County this year than Biden did 4 years ago.
And while that map looks like a fairly even red-blue split, you have to know that when you extrapolate that map out nationwide, it's just a sea of red. It's a sea of movement towards Trump from urban areas to rural areas to suburban areas. When I saw that nationwide map, Marshall, the thing that occurred to me is if there are Coloradans today shaking their heads about what happened, the fundamental shift in the American electorate towards Donald Trump, perhaps it's because Coloradans are just statistically less likely to know somebody in their lives or to be that person who moved from Biden to Trump. Because even if you're in California, you're in New York, you're more likely to be around people in your community who decided to make that shift.
Right, and we talked about that with the people from Magellan, that it talks about over the last 4 years, and particularly with COVID, maybe you came from a different area and you moved into the state, that you came here because you needed like more space or you wanted a cheaper way of life or something like that, and you're just kind of in a bubble. It's almost like what you described, Kyle, is like social media, but in real life, where you're around the people that are equal to you and they have the same mindset.
Really remarkable. We'll continue to dig into what this means more broadly. Marshall Zellinger, thank you. The latest proof that election rigging lies ruin lives. 2 women arrested on suspicion of voter fraud in Mesa County tell investigators they wanted to test Colorado's voting system to see if it was possible to cheat. I'm not allowed to say the first part of the phrase on TV, but those women are now in what's called the "and find out" phase. Vicki Stewart on the left is a mail carrier. Sally Maxton on the right is her friend, whose fingerprints happen to be on file with the government and on some stolen ballots. Sally told investigators they decided to do a little investigating of their own. Investigators say Vicky swiped the ballots from a mail route, then Sally filled them out and forged the voter signatures. Not very well, apparently, because a dozen of the ballots were flagged by the automated voter verification system. An elections worker then allowed 3 of those bad ballots to pass anyway. Those votes were counted. That's not great. Vicky and Sally, accused amateur election fraud detectives, are now charged with identity theft, forgery, and what's called attempt to influence a public servant. The closest congressional race in Colorado has not moved much today, and that is good news for Democratic Congresswoman Yadira Caraveo, who holds a 3,900 vote lead over Republican Gabe Evans. Evans's team tells us they hope that outstanding votes in Weld County might push them over the top. Updates throughout the day have not done that. Republican State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer lost to Caraveo in this race in 2022 by only 1,600 votes. She told us today that she thinks Evans, the Republican, still has a potential path, but the waiting and the hoping is the hard part.
It's extremely nerve-wracking, and there's a lot of stress involved, so you just try to keep yourself calm. I took a lot of walks. You want to leave every race knowing that you did everything you possibly could do. And if you have that feeling, then you know what, it's just the way it goes.
Weld County Clerk told us tonight there are 14,000 ballots left to process in her county. Not all of them are in CD8. Evans, the Republican, would need wide margins in the remaining vote out of Weld County there, and he'd need to pick up some of the remaining vote in Adams County, where Caraveo's traditionally had an edge. Both the Adams and Weld County clerks say their counts will continue into tomorrow. If Donald Trump is a man of his word, he's going to carry out the largest mass deportation in American history, and he will start it in Aurora, Colorado. That specific pledge at the center of his campaign is that he'll use local police to carry out immigration roundups. That would violate Colorado law. Or Trump said he would use the National Guard. Not likely here unless he takes the Guard from under the control of the Democratic governor. Or Trump said he could use the military to do this. Whoever comes knocking on doors, our Angeline McCall found advocates and city leaders preparing to push back.
Trump 2024.
On the campaign trail, promises made by President Trump.
And we will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of the United States.
An effort that he said would start in Aurora with a promise of mass deportation.
This morning, within your circle, family, community, what were some of the perhaps conversations you were having or some of the feelings that were being shared?
A question from one of my brothers who's undocumented. He did ask about whether we should be concerned about mass deportations in Colorado. And so that was really disheartening for me to hear from my younger brother.
Naida Benitez works with the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. She says now is the time to strategize on how to protect the Colorado laws that protect immigrants who recently crossed the U.S.-Mexico border and those who have been here for decades.
Now it's time to defend those policies because we know we're going to see efforts to repeal some of those protections. We already saw that last legislative session. It's really up to our local government, advocates, the community to make sure that we're holding the line in Colorado.
Denver says it's still early, but they're working on protections for immigrants and anyone else.
And if he asks us to do things that we think are immoral or unethical or unfair, we won't do them.
And if there is a plan rolled out, Mayor Johnston says they'll find ways to control what they can in Colorado.
So we are not going to open up our city boundaries to any state or federal agents to come in and take people out of their homes and try to deport them without cause.
After promises made, now a plan from advocates and city officials to strategize themselves.
Something Johnston mentioned is that 95% of the law enforcement in this country are local police departments and local police officers. He says they work for their local communities, not the president, not the federal government. And when we talk about the price of this, the American Immigration Council says that if the government deports 1 million people, that effort would cost $88 billion. And that's just 1 million, which is a fraction of the number of immigrants here. Kyle?
Yeah, Donald Trump says it could be 20 times that. We'll keep watching and talking about how this would work. Angeline McCall, thank you. So we have Election Day behind us. Halloween's in the rear view. That means that Thanksgiving is going to be here before we know it. And there are so many wonderful efforts around our state to feed our neighbors a good Thanksgiving meal. And I was thinking that maybe together, Spirit of Community, we could pick up the tab for one of those Thanksgivings. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports the nonprofit Struggle of Love's annual Thanksgiving dinner that they run in Denver and Aurora. This is the 18th year for their Need to Feed event. They offer these big Thanksgiving dinner baskets to families in need in Northeast Denver and Aurora. Hundreds of families have already signed up for this year's event. They're hoping to serve 2,000 families in need, 2,000 baskets. Our donations actually get pumped back into the local economy because the nonprofit buys their produce and other items for the Thanksgiving baskets from farmers here in our area. Struggle of Love does exceptional work preventing youth violence and mentoring young people. This is one of a few ways that they try to reach out to whole families, to give entire families a chance to gather around a Thanksgiving spread, the kinds of moments where memories are made. Scan that QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491 to get the link to donate. Your $13.5 million in microgiving proves how $5 donations add up, so you know the deal. Just like every other week, I'll match the first 50 people to come in with $5 to get us rolling. And almost 3,500 of you have signed up to simplify your giving with a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. That has meant that we have started the weekly microgiving campaigns lately with $24,000 in donations for each nonprofit. You can use the same QR code or text to get there. Coloradans shellacked a wealthy guy's proposal to change how our elections work.
Wow, we are off to a great start.
If you are prone to dizziness, hold on for this spin. And Denver voters had two sales tax hikes in front of on the ballot, and they had wildly different takes. Let's look at why. We've just learned of a crash that has killed a Golden police officer today. State Patrol says 2 officers were involved in this crash. One of them did not survive. It happened in Golden at Highway 58 and Washington, just north of downtown. We've got a crew headed in that direction, and we're working to learn whether the officers were inside or outside their vehicle when this happened, and any details beyond what CSP is saying, which is simply that alcohol was a factor in the crash.
I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team meteorologist Kathy Sabin. We continue with the Weather Impact Day for additional light snow and cold tonight. The winter weather advisory in effect for Denver remains in effect until 11 o'clock. We do have some areas of black ice that we're worried about tonight for the drive and for tomorrow morning, as temperatures have already dropped out of the 30s into the mid-20s and will go colder tonight. Scattered snow showers continue across eastern Colorado. Some of the heavier bands from Fort Morgan, Byers, back into Castle Rock, and even a few light snow showers pushing back into the metro area. Again, we remain under a winter weather advisory in Denver through 11 o'clock. Areas to the east under a winter storm warning through 5 o'clock tomorrow. Additional accumulation in the next 24 hours will be light for Denver, with a heavier band coming in Friday night into Saturday. The bullseye for that heavy precip in the next 24 hours will be southeastern Colorado. Temperatures stay in the 20s. We get a little lull in the action, a break from the snow ahead of the next round of cold and snow and potential weather impact day. That'll be Friday into Saturday. Sunday and Monday, sunshine and 50s to help melt off all that fresh snow.
What's the worst purchase you have ever made? Did it cost you $6 million? Even after torching that kind of cash on Colorado's failed open primaries ballot measure, multimillionaire Kent Thiry does not have buyer's remorse. Last check, 55% of Colorado voters were against his Proposition 131. It would have done away with party primaries and implemented ranked choice voting in the general election, a significant shakeup of how our elections work. Big donors, Thiry included, Chevron as well, raised about $19 million to back up this measure. Thiry had $6 million of his own in there. He told us today, the movement will continue. It will just require more time and more money, which he apparently has plenty of both.
Look at this as a journey. You think back to women's suffrage, think back to civil rights, think back to marriage equality. All those journeys, all those movements had setbacks. They had defeats. I think we have a lot of institutional momentum after this, but exactly how that will unfold and how much money will be spent, I don't pretend to have any kind of crystal ball.
Some state legislators who don't like this idea have already tried to throw up roadblocks if it were to pass in the future. Earlier this year, Democrats passed a state law that would delay the implementation of ranked choice voting across the state until a couple of cities decide independently to do it.
I think we're going to have to be really creative and come up with different solutions.
Denver needs to rethink an affordable housing plan after voters reject a sales tax initiative. And we will unveil our picks for who had the best and worst election nights in Colorado. Maybe your favorites or your least favorites are on the list. If you'd made me bet, I would have said that Denver's two sales tax issues either would have both passed or both failed. Instead, voters overwhelmingly supported a tax hike for Denver Health and rejected a tax hike for affordable housing. That was the mayor's project. Today, Mark Salinger asked him why so many people split their tax votes.
The questions were right next to each other on the ballot, 2Q and 2R. Both would increase sales taxes to fund projects and services their supporters said were essential. Yet voters had very different reactions.
We know that affordable housing can be more complicated and more controversial.
Mayor Mike Johnston's sales tax increase to fund affordable housing is being defeated right now by about 3 percentage points. Yet Denver Health sales tax increase to fund uncompensated care is passing by nearly 15%.
I think one is hospital system is a known entity. You know exactly what it does and how it works and what you're funding. I think affordable housing, you don't know where it's going to go, what it's going to look like, will it be in your neighborhood?
Around 20,000 people chose to vote yes for 2Q and no for 2R. It's what doomed the affordable housing tax.
If they had to make a decision between healthcare and affordable housing, I think this time around people definitely chose the healthcare.
Amanda Sandoval is the Denver City Council president and one of the sponsors of the mayor's affordable housing tax. She says without 2R, it's back to the drawing board. The city projects it's short around 40,000 affordable homes over the next decade.
Our general fund cannot support the creation of all those units, to be honest with you.
Well, I think the voters were clear. At this point, they are not looking at another sales tax increase. We need to look at other options.
Daryl Watson was also a sponsor of 2R in City Council.
2Q was essential. We needed to make sure that we're funding healthcare across the city and county of Denver and for all the folks that come to Denver Health for support.
One tax is passing, the other is failing. Thousands of voters split.
So we will never give up, but it will make the path to affordability tougher for a lot of those families.
For Next, I'm Mark Salinger.
All right, let's talk about who in Colorado politics had the best night and the worst night on election night.
Worst night. Kent Theory. I don't know how many millions you need to have not to miss 6 of them, but pouring $6 million of his fortune into the losing effort for open primaries, that has to qualify as a bad night. Best night. Jeff Crank. He wins a safe Republican seat in the Springs with a chance to build a brand of Republican leadership in this state that doesn't just revolve around the toxicity of State Chair Dave Williams or the self-promotion of Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. Worst night. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston. Backed open primaries? Lost. Backed a sales tax measure? Lost. And President-elect Donald Trump is certainly going to target Denver as a sanctuary city. A bad night with a promise of more to come. Best night. Denver Health CEO Donna Lynn. The former lieutenant governor's been shouting from the rooftops that the city's safety net hospital is in a death spiral. Voters threw her a sales tax revenue lifeline. Worst night. Lauren Boebert. She won a district that other Republicans win by 24 points by only 10 points. She is a uniquely weak candidate, despite her fame. Best night? Lauren Boebert. Because by fleeing her current safe Republican seat for an even safer Republican seat, she ensured that her party would not lose the 3rd Congressional District. And she still gets her safe seat for life.
We're back with some of your election feedback next. Let's make Thanksgiving happen for thousands of families in need in our community, because it's going to be here before we know it. The nonprofit Struggle of Love is preparing thousands of Thanksgiving baskets with produce from local farmers. So it's a win-win when we donate to make Thanksgiving happen for families in Denver and Aurora. This is their 18th annual event. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. You can give just this week or sign up to make a monthly donation. Greg says, I grew up on the Western Slope and I disagree with you that Colorado is blue. Greg, I hear you, man. As somebody who grew up in the reddest part of a very blue state, I understand that feeling. But at the end of the day, the math is the math. I'll see you next time.